Hey everybody, Zanavi here, and as promised, since the patch notes have dropped, I'm going to be doing a deep dive into my Cyclone Shockwave Slayer from 3.25. The build received no nerfs from the patch notes. In fact, we are now buffed slightly. Cyclone itself got a damage increase, an area of effect increase, and Cyclone of Tumult got a damage increase and quicker ramping of its stages. So the build should be stronger than it was in 3.25. And I'm very excited to play it as my league starter next week. So I have two characters I'm going to show you today. The first is a character that I made in a private league about a week ago, and I streamed for several days the character all the way from level 1 to what you see here. All that footage is on my YouTube channel, but the idea was to test the build out in a restricted SSF-like environment and see what I'd be able to accomplish as a league starter, mostly because I plan on playing SSF next week for 3.26. After I show you this guy, then we'll hop on my main character from Settlers last year. I'll show that to you a little bit, and then we'll do a deep dive into the POB that will be in the description of this video. So looking at my SSF character from last week, I was able to essentially complete the Atlas, get my Void Stones, some favored maps, did different mapping strategies on the Atlas itself, and had a blast. Its gear is relatively simple, just life and resistances on pretty much all the pieces as far as I could get that to go. And then we did get two uniques. One is Carnage Heart, which is a nice damage multiplier on this build early on. And then we also got a Roomies. Roomies is really nice because this is a block build, so you get the spell block and attack block when you use Roomies. We have 65% attack block and 63% spell block. Obviously on trade, you would get eventually Flame and Flesh for more than skill, and scale your attack and spell block up to essentially 90%. The rest of my gear, let's see, the staff was 7 to 750 Fizz DPS. I crafted this via Harvest, and that's about it for the skill tree. We have no cluster jewels because Overlord on a cluster jewel on average is thousands of alterations being spammed. To solve fortification, we pretty much just ran the Eldritch Implicit on the chest here. Melee hits have 6% chance to fortify. And yeah, I do have two jewels here, one with life and some crit multi, and another with life and attack speed. But the rest of my points are all just allocated directly onto the tree. So we're going to go ahead and do a quick map, just so I can show you what this looks like. Doing T16. And then we'll swap over to my actual trade character from last year and go over that. So some thoughts about playing SSF for a week. The first thing I'm going to recommend, and we'll go over this more in the POB, is that you play Sunder as your leveling skill pretty much all the way through the campaign. I did make the mistake, I think, of swapping to Cyclone around Act 8, and I actually had to stop for a while and get my gear situated so that I could comfortably do Cyclone. You can obviously run Cyclone much earlier in the campaign, but I think if you're trying to get to maps as quickly as possible, Sunder is going to be your most efficient leveling skill, and then you're going to want to swap over to Cyclone basically once you get to maps. So you would run your Cyclone gem setup in like a second weapon swap, and you would, on the side be crafting a decent staff that you can use when you make the swap. We're just going to take like random stuff here. Doesn't really matter. I'm just kind of clicking everything and doing everything so you can see what the build looks and feels like, but I'm not really seriously engaging in anything right now because it's mostly want to demo off what it looks like. Get a Harvey. that's basically the build. So yeah, 1 week SSF, just gear that I crafted and found, able to do the entire atlas, everything you need to do as a league starter. Let's go ahead and swap over to my main character from last year. So this guy has a lot of investment on him, and we'll go over that real quick before I demo the gameplay. So for him in particular, I really like this MTX, and we have like a shark cyclone, which looks really nice with it. But anyways, start with the chest. So ignore stuns while using socketed attack skills. This is really nice because it frees us up from having to run unwavering stance. We also have the socket attacks have mana cost reduction. Once again, frees it up so that we don't have to run additional mana reduction points on our passive tree. We have that you can apply an additional curse. This is really nice because we have a curse enemies with Vuln on hit ring, as well as our mark on hit with Assassin's Mark gem setup. And then we have the attacks have % crit strike chance increase. Obviously we're a crit build, so that's a really good mod to have. You could craft this on a higher base, armor base, but Astral Plate's really nice because we do get that 12% to LE resistances, which helps out a lot with LE resist on the build. Then we're running an Abyssus. I didn't corrupt mine, but you probably should. See what implicit you can get. Obviously we're running the Stampede because we have Cyclone of Tumult. We have attack speed and armor scaling on our gloves, as well as just life and resistances. Belt with life and resistances. You really want life and resistances on your rings, specifically chaos or amethyst rings to scale your chaos resistance. And then for your amulet, you're going to stack attributes like dex and intelligence, and then just life and resistances. For our anoints, because we're running flame and flesh for more than skill, as I mentioned, we do anoint enigmatic defense up here for more attack and spell block. And then on our boots, we have influence that gives us just increased non-curse aura from our skills. As far as the passive tree goes, let me go over the weapon real quick. So this is like a well over 1000 Fizz DPS weapon. Crafting this costs a lot of money. I have videos from last year that show me actually crafting this while I was streaming, but essentially you roll a staff until you get tier 1 Fizz hybrid, then you YOLO a fracture orb and hope that you hit. Once you have that, you spam deafening essences until you get the highest increased Fizz damage roll you can, and then you do some multi-crafting on the bench so that you can lock in attack speed and crit strike chance, and then you craft on the multiplier. That's pretty much how you make the weapon. And then for our flasks, we're running Bottled Faith because it's a crit build. Also, we get that Consecrated Ground. And then Progenesis. This is, anywhere from 30 to 60 divine, but it is the largest damage reduction multiplier for us, especially when we're running really high-end content later on, like T17s and Uber Pinnacle bosses, which I have videos showcasing this guy doing last year. As far as the tree goes, we're running Light of Meaning, really nice damage multiplier. We have a Storm Shroud. This is how we're doing our elemental element avoidance. So this in conjunction with 2 Abyss Jewels, 50% chance to avoid being shocked here, as well as the same over here, gives us our full elemental ailment immunity. We are also running a double Pride Watcher's Eye, very expensive, once again 30 or 40 divine, but at this point you are pumping as much currency into the build to scale your damage and defense as much as possible. That's pretty much it for the tree. We do have our cluster jewel set up with Overlord to give us our fortification, and then just some more crit scaling here. So what I'm going to do right now is I'll show you a quick map. Once we're done with this, then we'll go into the POB and do a quick deep dive. I'm not a big fan of T17s, but when I run T17s, I particularly like Fortress because your Cyclone covers the entirety pretty much of the area, right? So it just makes it feel pretty good. The thing to keep in mind about Cyclone is you are, if you're running Cyclone of Tumult and using the Stampede boots, you have a set movement speed, right? So you're not going super slow, but you're also not going super fast. It's pretty much just a very chill, speed, like a 1 speed. And the nicety of this build essentially, once again, is it's a 1-button build, right? You're pretty much just running your Cyclone and just going through the map and killing everything, which feels really nice. having a little bit of latency right now, so hopefully that doesn't cause any issues. Yeah, there's definitely going to be far faster like builds for doing like T17 farming if that's a thing in 3.26, but still just a really nice like farmer overall. There's the boss. We'll see what we get. And I could run the rest of this, but for the sake of brevity, we'll just go straight into the POB. So yeah, let me go ahead and swap over to the POB real quick. So looking at the path of building, the way I have designed this out is I have trees for the entire leveling process, and then I have recommendations for, you know, running Resolute Technique when you go to crit conversion, and then eventually when you go to a juiced version like you see right here. So all you have to do is select the loadout, and it will show you the skill tree. It'll show you what skills I recommend for that level range, as well as an item selection. The first several loadouts, I don't really generate a bunch of gear. I just kind of tell you, hey, use like a one-handed axe or something. And as you go through and select the new loadout, you can see the tree expands. The gem setup will change slightly, so you start out with like using crossblades and double strike, and then you go to Sunder as soon as you can, and you're going to use Sunder for essentially, you know, all of your leveling. But yeah, as you level, you just go to the next loadout. It'll tell you the order of your ascendancies you should go for. Because we're leveling with Sunder, my recommendation is that you go for Bane of Legends first, then you go into Headsman, and then when you make the swap to Cyclone, when you do your third lab right before you go to Maps, then you pick up Impact for the AoE increase and all of that. And then the very last ascendancy you're going to get is Brutal Fervor for the Leech. You're pretty much going to run Resolute Technique the entirety of the campaign. You can go crit early on, but on a League starter without resources, it's probably best just to go Resolute Technique, and then sometime when you get into Maps, you swap over to crit. I do provide a level 90 tree that's still running Resolute Technique. But then I have a level 90 tree where you make the conversion to crit and you drop some stuff and you swap over to that. This is where I expect most people to be. You're doing pretty decent damage with this iteration of the build. It's going to cost you, as you saw with the gear on my live character, a lot of investment to play something like this, but you can scale your damage pretty high and your effective hit pool pretty high. So you're very tanky and you do a lot of damage. But we'll talk about the level 90 crit conversion tree real quick. For this, the recommendation for items to pick up is essentially you're going to want to get the Stampede first. This is going to enable you to use Cyclone of Tumult, which is going to do more damage at max stacks than regular Cyclone. So you want the first unique you're going for is a Stampede. I then highly recommend you pick up an Abyssus early on. This is a lot of crit multi, which is really nice when you're playing a crit build. You also want to get a Rumi's Concoction relatively quickly so that you can scale your attack block to scale your spell block. The quality of life jewels, one is defense and one is offense. They're both going to be expensive. Light of Meaning is going to be a lot of damage scaling. It's going to probably be pretty relatively expensive for most players, but this will be your first chase item you want to go for. And then Storm Shroud will be less expensive, but this is going to give you that quality of life with elemental ailment immunity when you run your two Abyss Jewels that have the 50% chance to avoid being shocked with this in particular. So that's the order in terms of what I would go after for uniques. For crafting gear, you always want to be working on crafting a better staff. You can see here that I have like a 850 Fizz DPS staff. This is pretty relatively easy to make. The one that I made in SSF is like 100 Fizz DPS less than this, so very easy to make a weapon like this because of the quality scaling since 3.25. And you're just looking for like Fizz damage rolls, accuracy, you can craft on attack speed, things like that. You just want to make the best staff that you can, essentially. So that's pretty much it for gear. For your gems, when you're Cyclone, you're going to be running, obviously, Cyclone of Tumult, and Shockwave, right? That's what gives you those nice explosion pops on the build. And then you were running Impale because it's a Fizz build, Brutality, Melee Fizz. Our cast when damage taken setup, Bolted Shell with more duration. We run Life Tap on a lot of our skills because we're going to have very little mana. So we run Life Tap on our cast when damage. We run Life Tap on our mark on hit for our curse to essentially free up our mana as much as possible. And then for your auras, you're going to run Pride and Blood and Sand, Flesh and Stone, and Herald of Purity. You're going to use your Blood Rage whenever you enter a zone. As far as precision goes, to scale our hit chance, you're going to run that with Arrogance and reserve a little bit of life, and this is going to help us hit that cap on hit chance so that our hits always hit. That's pretty much it for the POB. Feel free to go through this as much as possible. I will be fine-tuning this over the next week. I'm probably going to be doing another SSF test run just to see how quickly I can level up a fresh character. And I'll have an updated POB when I stream next week for the league launch. I will probably have some notes and thoughts in here and stuff like that. But I think as it is right now, this should be pretty good for guiding most players through the progression of the build. I will make one other note. When you first are starting out, I do recommend picking up a Hegeonymies. These are usually pretty cheap, and it's a decent Fizz staff for when you start out maps. So I recommend you pick one of these up early on. They're usually like 30 chaos or 40 chaos. They're usually not too expensive. And then when you get to 90, you want to look for Cane of Kolomak with Fizz damage rolls on it, especially deal double damage while focused. This is just a really nice weapon to have. This will easily get you through all of your Atlas progression. You can make a crafted weapon like I did on SSF, but if you can find one of these on trade and they're not super expensive, that's also really nice. With the changes to Betrayal, I don't know if items from Betrayal are going to be more rare or less rare. There's some incentives to running Betrayal now that didn't exist before, so a lot of people might still run it, but I think overall less players are going to run it, so you may see less items from Betrayal, so the price of something like Cane might go slightly up. But you don't need this weapon. As you saw with my SSF character, you can craft your own weapon and complete everything as a league starter. This is just a nice quality of life item to have, mostly because of that deal double damage while focused. That's just a lot of damage when you hit that button. But don't feel obligated to run this. You can run a crafted staff like I did, improved that, you know, it more than functions for doing everything you need to do as a league starter. So yeah, that is the build. Thank you everybody for the support over the last week or so. I'm very excited for what this league has to offer, and I will be streaming SSF next week with my Cyclone build and just going through the entire progression. Probably going to be doing a lot of blight farming so that I can get these boots. Apparently they're a pretty low drop rate, but I'm hoping that if I do enough Blight Ravage maps over the course of a few days, I might get lucky and see one of these and we can make the swap to Cyclone of Tumult. But that's the plan. I'll be looking at some other builds over the next week that I might want to try out, but I'm like 99% sure it's going to be my Cyclone Shockwave that I'm league starting next week. So feel free to ask any questions in the video. I'll try to respond as much as possible. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoy spinning to win as much as I do, and I'll catch you all later.